Many viewers have described being met with a collective moment of disbelief upon the opening credits of Jordan Peele's 2017 film, Get Out. This reaction is not unwarranted. Prior to Get Out, Peele was best known as the latter half of comedy duo Key and Peele, absurdist sketch comedy chock full of sharp satire, screwball wit, and sexual innuendo. His directorial debut was not one expected to be of abduction and bodily violation, with overt references to the histories and modern realities of racial violence and exploitation. Yet it is precisely Peele's background in comedy that makes Get Out so effective. The film's impact does not emerge in spite of humor, but through it. Film scholars Lauren McLeod Kramer and Catherine Zimmer situate Get Out in a broader tradition of contemporary Black horror that invites, quote, audiences to consider the spectacularization of Black pain, trauma, and death, unquote. Peele himself has jested that Get Out is a documentary, and while that's obviously tongue-in-cheek, it references multiple realities at once. What may register as the horror of everyday life for some viewers may be read as just a clever genre experiment for others. In this sense, Peele's answer makes sense. As a white viewer, my engagement with the film is shaped by this uneven address. This essay doesn't attempt to speak for Black audiences, but instead examines how Get Out weaponizes familiarity and social ease, reproduced through humor, politeness, and genre cues, to implicate viewers accustomed to cultural naivety in the face of racial violence.
Oh, white girl. Oh, they get you every time.
Comedy has long functioned as a way of contending with discomfort. From Richard Pryor to the Wayans brothers to Saturday Night Live, Get Out draws on this tradition, but in a more subversive way. Rather than using humor to alleviate tension, the film deploys comedy, politeness, and genre familiarity to establish a sense of comfort, only to turn itself on its head and reveal how that false security delays our recognition of harm. As Dakota Parko Z notes, satire is, quote, inherently purposeful, unquote, aimed at critiquing social and political structures by using, quote, absurdity, distortion, reversal, and reduction, unquote, to expose contradictions. Get Out is honestly satire's dream scenario. The jokes aren't removed from the horror, they are the tools embedded to strip liberal normalcy down to its most violent core. In this sense, Get Out operates as a kind of anti-comedy, using laughter not as levity, but to implicate the viewer in a process of denial. Some critics have worried that Get Out risks trivializing racial politics through its humor. But as Kramer and Zimmer argue, quote, if the film wasn't funny, it wouldn't be doing the same work, unquote. The jokes aren't there to keep the audience comfortable, they're tactical. And they expose how easily white viewers, like myself, can laugh, rationalize, and turn a blind eye to current oppressive forces at play. The film establishes this logic immediately in its opening sequence. Andre's walk through a suburban neighborhood mirrors the iconic cold opens we recognize from cult horror films such as Scream and Halloween. The screenplay reinforces this familiarity through genre cues, like implied shots of the driver's heavy breathing from a point of view angle, very Halloween, while the film brings it to life in a way that feels all too familiar. A dark street, the lurking car, the creepy music. Yet Andre's response isn't full-blown panic. It's humor. He talks to himself, cracks jokes, and remains acutely aware of the danger trailing him in a way that feels comically realistic. So when the last thing we see before opening credits is Andre's unconscious body being stuffed into a trunk, the shift from comedy to violence can feel sudden, even though the threat was verbalized from the beginning, especially for viewers attuned to the racial dynamics present here. This pattern carries over into our introduction to Chris, soundtracked to Childish Gambino's Redbone. In an interview with the BBC, Peele explains that
I think the difference between a horror and comedy often is the music. It's like take a dope track, but one that has a haunting thing going on.
Redbone does exactly that. It's a banger of a track, and between slick guitar licks and a groovy snare, it's easy to miss its vigilant lyrics. As the screenplay describes, quote, it's a perfect morning, unquote, reinforcing the impression of safety and routine. Redbone, however, has since become Get Out's anthem, a needle drop that feels cool and timely while warning both Chris and the audience to stay awake.
You know I can't give you the keys, right, babe?
Rose's early humor further reinforces this sense of comfort. When Chris asks whether her parents know that he is black, Rose responds with a self-aware, playful deflection. Her tone positions her as a progressive ally and encourages us as the audience to trust her. She embodies a familiar image of white wokeness, a girl who gets it, yet is more concerned by how her family is treating Chris than Chris himself. While this could read as a performative display of allyship or empathy, her witty characterization works narratively to lower suspicion and anchor her in this liberal archetype we see so often.
Chris, you gotta get the fuck up out of there, man. You in some eye wide shut situation. Leave, motherfucker.
No. You gonna be a... Hello?
Rod's phone calls operate as the film's most overt comedic relief. His exaggerated paranoia and vulgar one-liners clearly call back to Peele's sketch comedy roots, and Lil Rel Howery's lively performance pushes his humor further. Rod is all along right. He essentially predicts the film before anyone else, but his delivery, combined with the repeated dismissal of law enforcement, reframe his theories as ridiculous. He's just the funny best friend. Comedy here neutralizes danger, even when it's written outright in ink.
With your frame and your genetic makeup, if you really pushed your body, and I mean really trained, you know, no pussyfooting around, you'd be a fucking beast.
Then there's Jeremy. What a character. His drunken introduction and obnoxious "What's up, fam?" reads less like an immediate threat and more like familiar masculine bravado, casting him as the loud, frat-like figure of the Armitage family. He feels recognizable. Annoying, sure, but nothing out of the ordinary. So when his aggression escalates into outright violence, it doesn't feel unpredictable so much as a reminder of how easily audiences misidentify threat in boisterous men. That this brutality could feel surprising at all is exactly Peele's critique.
Pendulum is swung back. Black is in fashion.
The Garden Party pushes this strategy to its limit. It's the most overtly satirical sequence in the film, and the point where something is undeniably off. Initially, the scene plays like a social comedy. Wealthy white socialites fawn over Chris, ask invasive questions, prod and comment on his body under the guise of admiration and curiosity. If Kramer and Zimmer are right in their statement that, quote, whiteness is horrifying, but also just so stupid, unquote, then this sequence functions as white stupidity's theatrical magnum opus. It's shamelessly on the nose and doesn't shy away from the complete audacity of the guests. In the screenplay, these interactions read more detached, drier, but it is in the film's staging, Daniel Kaluuya's forced smiles, Allison Williams' stiff laughs, pauses that drag just a beat too long, where the satire lands. No one can finish this scene without a sense of palpable discomfort. The Garden Party doesn't try to hide the racism present amongst its guests. It turns these microaggressions into spectacle and reveals how openly fetishization can surface in supposedly polite interaction, especially as experienced by people of color. Parko Z emphasizes that satire is, quote, often ambiguous, misinterpreted, or mistaken for earnestness, unquote. That audiences often laugh at the joke before internalizing its point, if at all. Get Out deploys this satirical implication. Again and again, it incites laughter through Rod's goofy paranoia, the Armitage's clumsy racial commentary, and the party's invasive fascination with Chris, as a known and experienced interpretation of the social incongruities of the privileged. The audience's failure to pick up on the threat in these micro-interactions would not be a flaw in Peele's satire, but an expose of the exact ignorance the film satirizes. What Parko Z describes as the unresolved question of whether, quote, interpretive failures, unquote, belong to the satirist or the viewer.
I mean, I told you not to go in that house.
Peele's original ending for Get Out, in which Chris ends up incarcerated rather than rescued, offered a bleaker, more devastating realism to the story. Kramer and Zimmer, however, lean in favor of the version we see in the film, viewing it as, quote, a gift to Peele and to black audiences, unquote, who had just borne witness to 90 minutes of sustained violence. This is the one moment in the film where comedy and levity finally align, offering Black audiences a reprieve they rarely get to see within the genre. Taken together, these moments demonstrate that Get Out's horror emerges through humor, not outside of it. By drawing on the classic provocations of satire like absurdity, reversal, and exaggeration, Peele exposes the everyday violences that white liberal comfort works so hard to ignore. The screenplay lays the groundwork on the page, but it's the performances, music, and timing that sharpen its critique, implicating viewers who are accustomed to being cushioned by stories about race. If the film makes you uncomfortable, Peele has done his job. Get Out allows Black audiences to see themselves within the horror genre, while demanding that white viewers sit with an uncomfortable truth. Laughter and social niceties are often how violence is allowed to pass.